Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Vibing with Sleezy, the podcast. This is season 3, episode 10, and this is going to be another two-parter episode. This will be part 1, and I want to thank everybody for listening and downloading this season. I know that usually, like season 1 and season 2, I'm pounding out the episodes and releasing them back to back to back, but there's been some traveling and delays and craziness. So, but the episodes are still coming out. I'm still going to finish season 3 like I always do. So, I want to thank everybody for patiently waiting for each episode to come out. But seeing the numbers and the results still coming in, I really it shows me that, everybody's waiting and it makes me feel good about that. So, I appreciate everybody doing that. My special guest was my first guest ever on this show. He is a very good podcast guest because he's been on several podcasts. He has a great voice. He's a very knowledgeable person, especially when it comes to pro wrestling. And he was, like I said, honored and my honorable guest for my first ever episode. I mean, I think back that feels so long ago, but it's such an honor to have him back. So my special guest is none other than Sean P, aka
Yes,
Referee Man Bun, aka Sean Patrick O'Brien, aka the man. What's up, dude?
that's right, brother. Yeah, man. What's crazy is before we started chopping it up, I was like, man, how long ago was it that we talked? And to kind of, I guess, you rub your ego a little bit. I went and I was scrolling through, and I'm just scrolling, and I'm like, damn, Sleazy's done a lot of episodes since I've been on.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, dude, I've
So,
been trying to pump them out, dude, and like,
that's right.
yeah, it's like my main goal is like each season to put 21 episodes out, similar to like a sitcom TV show. That was always my goal, and I did
Yeah.
it with season 1 and 2. And then when I hit the 50th episode mark, when I started season 3, I was like, damn, like, man, that's a lot of episodes and a lot of time, but it's been awesome. I The benefits and positives of it has been meeting tons of great people, putting out great episodes, reaching the milestones that I wanted. The difficulties still are trying to book people and schedules and coordinate with people. But at the end of the day, you know, it's fun. It's not a grind, and I really enjoy it still. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. And um, and like only having like 10 more episodes, after we do this two-parter tonight, after 10 more episodes, it's like, damn, season 3 will be under the belt. And so I like doing those 4-month breaks after each season where I clear my head mentally, I can prepare. And I'm just hoping with like season 4, which I'll be doing in the next year, it's like, I just want to keep growing with it.
For
That's my
sure.
main goal.
Yeah, right. Nah, yeah, you've definitely got the right mindset for sure. Um, and what's crazy is, so I went back and I looked how long ago it was that we had talked, and like, there's been a lot of things that have happened for me, like since the last time that we've talked. Um, like, now I work like on a regular basis, and I'm the senior official for one of the top companies in the country. And I actually had my own podcast that I was doing for a good little amount of time. The guy who he was actually the host of it and founded the podcast and started it. And then he asked me to jump on with him. He needed some time for real life. And that's the only reason why it's on hiatus right now. And I say it's on hiatus because we're effing coming back. but,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, yeah, there's been so much that's been happening for me, and I can't wait to talk about it with you.
No, man, that's awesome. And dude, that's great news. Congratulations on your role, your job, and like congratulations. I saw your podcast. I did tune in, and I know I understand those setbacks. I've had friends that have gone through that. Like I had a friend here recently. I had a clothing line, and he had a major setback where like his partner had to take some personal, life issues, and shit happens. And so at the end of the day, as long as you don't quit on it and you want to, get back to it. And, it's like, that's the main thing, man. And it's like, and
Right.
dude, you're a podcast dude. Like, I really am. I'm not trying to blow your head up, but it's like, you are a podcast master, dude. Like, you're always good on the shows. You're always relevant. You're always on like different types of podcasts. You're not just like on
Okay.
mine and like someone else's, like you're doing multiples. And so it's pretty cool too that like you're taking that route to do your own, because I think when we talked on the last one, I didn't really get to go back and listen to our first episode, but it's like I just remember, I think we discussed, it's like, either you were doing one or had done a podcast like of your own, or like you were thinking about it. But it's like, dude, I thought that's the route that you should definitely take, because you're
Yeah.
good at it, man. You're good, dude.
I appreciate it, bro. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think the last time that we had talked, because at the time period, well, before I had hopped on as like an official co-host,
Yeah.
I was like his most reoccurring, guest, I guess it was, because the premise of the podcast, for the most part, was that he would review shows on a channel that I appear quite a bit on, IWTV. And so that was kind of how he had started the podcast. But then by the time that, we were starting to kind of slow down, we were still cranking out, interviews by all kinds of people, man. Like, and that was really kind of once I'd hopped on, it was more so just doing interviews than it was reviewing, because there was so much wrestling to watch that it was just like, it was hard to catch up. And
Oh
so,
yeah, yeah, for
uh,
sure, dude. There's so much, dude. There's so much wrestling out there now,
oh
and
man,
with all the and with all the owners of these companies with so much money, and now they're backing these independents, and they're getting behind like Ring of Honor, and you're seeing that now. You got to stay in tune to that. Then you got to try to stay relevant with Japan's product, and then you got to try to stay relevant with AEW. And now that Triple H is back in command, it's like, shit, WWE's actually gaining its entertainment value back. So it's like there's so much really going on, that if you don't get to catch up with an episode, you really have to tune into one of those pro wrestling websites to stay like in tune with all the what's going on.
yeah, dude, it's become really hard for me to keep up with like mainstream wrestling. You know what I mean? Because like as much as I want to watch it, like it's hard to watch AEW, and then like you said, WWE is actually starting to become watchable again, and so
Yeah.
it's been to keep up with it too. And like I've literally had to just go out of my way to watch matches that I hear a lot of buzz about, and I'll see like one or two matches, and then I'll just kind of keep it moving. And if there's a whole entire show that I want to watch, like it takes me at least probably a couple days just to watch it. So
Yeah, exactly, dude. I mean,
but like recently, like for instance, that Clash of the Castle show, I had heard everybody talking about Sheamus and Walter, or whatever he calls himself now, Gunther, I think it is.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds like my kind of jam. And so I went out of my way and I peeped it, and man, what a match it was. So and then not only that, but then like with all the hype going into Extreme Rules, like I wasn't doing anything on what was a Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it was on. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, let me check it out, And so
Yeah, and
I've watched most of Extreme Rules, like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes you just have to check it out. I mean, because if not, it's like it's kind of like you kind of wait to hear. And I don't know. I kind of like to be current on it, like from the standpoint, if I'm able to watch it live, I want to watch it live.
yeah,
And
I'm the same way.
and what you mentioned, that match with Sheamus and Gunther, is that not only was that a huge match. I know he's a controversial figure, and but Dave Meltzer, that's one of only 5 matches I believe that he's ever given a full 5-star rating. So, I mean, that's a huge deal for not
That's big,
only,
yeah.
yeah, those wrestlers, but for WWE alone. But the pot, but the, or not, excuse me, not the pot, but the pay per view. I thought it ended so stupid, and the reason why is, you have Drew McIntyre lose the match in his hometown to Roman Reigns, and that's fine, whatever. keep pushing Roman. I like the bloodline storyline, but the thing that throws me off is like, then you see Drew McIntyre kind of like, I can't remember exactly if he was either dancing or singing or like cheers and a beer or something with people out in the ring, but it's like it's just kind of weird. It's like him celebrating like he just had the loss, and I don't know. I just thought that it's like, I don't know. You could have kind of ended it a little bit different from what
Nah, yeah, I completely, I understand that. Yeah, yeah. But well, I didn't even. You talking about the Clash of the Castle?
yeah, Clash of the Castle.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, I didn't even watch like that whole pay-per-view. Literally, I just went out of my way to watch that one.
Yeah. I mean,
So
and dude, and it's hard, dude. It's hard to stay up with some of the, new talent, and I want to, but
or
and
the
I don't know.
stories that are going on,
AEW is
like,
my main follow. Huh?
or I was even the stories that are going on, it's kind of hard to keep up with.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. And then you see
Yeah.
they keep bringing the thing that fucks me up with WWE is like they bring legends back, then they release talent, then they bring talent back, then they're bringing up people from different things, and I'm all about that. And like, bring me different shit, keep bringing me new content, but make it make sense and let me be able to follow. I love AEW. I follow AEW pretty strongly. I've been watching all the pay-per-views. Shout out to Frankie, who's a guest on the show, and my buddy Eric. We still try to watch all the pay-per-views together, and we stay up on the AEW content. And I like what they've been doing. They've had a few setbacks, but I enjoy it. But it is, like I said, it's still hard to actually watch those storylines. I mean, you and I are two very, very busy people with our personal lives, and
Right.
you're working in the wrestling industry, so you're super busy with that as well. So yeah, it really is hard to be a working, functioning adult with who's trying to also have a personal life and to be able to watch so many different things. But I also, here's the thing, I don't, because I know a lot of wrestling fans will listen to this podcast, and I don't want them to listen to us and be like, listen to these whiny bitches. No, at the end of the day, we love it. We love, like, I know I can speak for you on this, Sean. We love all the wrestling. Give us as much wrestling as we want. Give us more fucking companies to watch. But at the
Oh
end
yeah.
of the day, we're just admitting to it. We're just admitting and being real. It's hard to
Yeah.
stay up on all of it. But keep giving us product. We fucking love it.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's more places for me to work. So
Exactly. And so
yeah.
the thing that we'll dive into here, of course, is Sean is a referee. He is a pro wrestling referee. He has worked for several different companies. He has actually even been in action in matches. He's I've fuck. He's done pay-per-views. He's done regular shows. He's been all behind the scenes of wrestling. He's met a lot of big names. He's met a lot of people that have started from the bottom and now are on these major shows. And Sean really shared a lot of great content on the first episode. So if you get to go back to season 1, episode 1, check it out, because Sean does share a lot about wrestling on that. But just to kind of, just wanted to, for people that didn't know who you are, but yeah, it's like Sean has been in this business, and Sean is someone who not only knows people and just knows the behind the scenes, and that's what you're really going to get out of this 2-part episode, is like finding out not only about his career and like where he's at, but really hearing about what's still happening behind the scenes, and what you hear just kind of about in the industry. So Sean, so where's your career taken off since, I guess, season 1?
So I'd say, let's see, when we talked, it was around, because it was around March 2021. And around that time period, I was really trying to find, I guess, like a bigger platform to be a regular feature on, or not feature, but, just to be a regular team member, a part of. And I'm not sure if I had started with ICW No Holds Barred yet or not. But that was the company that I ended up, I'm pretty sure, actually, I might not have done any shows with them yet. I'm trying to think, because I know that, so the way that I ended up getting on to ICW No Holds Barred was through working with GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, which they are the biggest independent wrestling company in the world. And so, but working with them, I had got on a pretty big platform. And what was cool about that was there was a lot of homies that, you know, I knew from the hip hop scene in Louisville whenever I used to do hip hop and music back in the day. And they were hitting me up like, yo, I seen you on GCW, dog. That's so cool. And I'm like, you watch GCW? It was kind of crazy. But yeah, I was doing a few shows at GCW. And then ICW, No Holds Barred, they ended up needing a referee. I think it was like the week after my first or second Game Changer show. I can't remember exactly, but regardless, they needed a referee the following weekend. Went out for them. Had, you know, a crazy experience. ICW also does there's a brand that they also have called the Pit Fighter brand, which is more kind of mixed with the hardcore style and mixed martial arts. And they had actually debuted that particular weekend that I had first started with them. They were doing the Pit Fighter in like an octagon style cage. And so like that was my first time standing inside of an octagon, like an MMA actual cage. And like it was a crazy experience. But so I did that first show, took a couple of shows off because at the time they had a regular referee. But ended up after about 2 or 3 shows, I had hit them up, and ICW was running with a festival that was going on up in Jersey. It was called Boardwalk Buds. It was in Atlantic, Jersey. And it was like a marijuana CBD festival. And I was like, yo, I have to be a part of that. Like,
yeah.
And so
hell yeah.
Ended up, I reached out to Danny DeMonto, who's a promoter of ICW. And I was like, hey man, just to let you know, I have these dates available if you'll use me. And then I also told them about a couple others because they had shows announced in like San Antonio, Texas. There was a show somewhere else that was maybe Florida or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but regardless, wherever, I was like, I'm also available for those dates too. And he had pretty much told me like, if you're available, I want you there. Like you are my guy. And I was like, oh, well, say less. And I've made myself available for ICW ever since. They've done some really crazy things, like bringing back the SATs. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember them from the TNA days back in the day.
Oh yeah.
But the Spanish announce team, the guys who pretty much invented the Spanish fly, which is one of my favorite moves just in pro wrestling in general. But that's another topic. But and then through working with ICW, I've been able to, you know, work for a company called ETU, which is Expect the Unexpected, because their lead commentator, he runs that company. And ETU was the company that, their very first show was Jonah's first show out of NXT back when he got released.
Oh, okay.
What was his name? I can't remember his name in NXT. Crap.
Oh man.
Bronson Reed or something. Was it? Yeah. So his first match after he got released, it was him versus ACH. I got to referee that match, and it was incredible. So through working with ICW, because recently they've been going down to Tennessee a lot, and I have been able to make some connections with other companies down in Tennessee, and I've been able to do a lot down in Tennessee recently. Matter of fact, that's where I'll be this weekend. I don't know when this episode is going to drop, but that's actually where I'm at this weekend is Tennessee.
Okay, so I'm going to drop this on Thursday, October 13th. So this will come out tomorrow. We are recording the 2-parter tonight, and then the second parter I'll drop on Sunday, so everybody will be able to get both parts through the weekend. And you know, like I said, the first part be about an hour, and then we'll put out the second part be over about an hour. And so it will be pumping out wrestling content and getting everybody caught up. So yeah, but dude, Tennessee's an awesome place. I just actually left Nashville. I went to Nashville this past weekend, me and my girlfriend, with my birthday being on yesterday. I was like, I'm gonna get out of town. And she's a huge fan of Giveon. the R&B singer.
Okay, yeah.
And, dude, he is incredible. He put on a hell of a concert. So if anybody listening is a big Giveon fan or R&B fan or just music fan in general, go to Giveon. It's worth every penny.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Giveon, man, for sure. Yeah.
And
Well, and
he's unbelievable.
And talking about Tennessee, let me tell you about Tennessee, man. So I fell in love really with Tennessee whenever we would take the trips, the ICW trips to Florida, because in 2021, well, actually, it had to have been after we had talked, because in 2021, I was down in Florida. It felt like a lot. There was at least 2 or 3 ICW shows that we did in Florida. Plus, I was there for, all the Tampa stuff that had happened, as far as like, the collective and all that around the time of WrestleMania. So like, I felt like I was in Florida at least a good handful of times. But every time we would go down there, obviously we'd have to drive through Tennessee. And it was just like, it doesn't matter if you got stuck driving through that part or if you were awake, just sitting in the car in the passenger seat or back seat. Like, the scenery just driving through Tennessee is just incredible. Like, you just got to just stare at it and watch as you drive through, because it's that amazing. But I had kind of made it a goal, because I felt like I do quite a bit in Indiana still. ICW, their home base is out of Jersey. So I was going up to the East Coast quite a bit. I felt like I had kind of done quite a bit in the Illinois area, St. Louis and all that. I still work for a couple companies in the St. Louis area. And so like, one of my goals was I really wanted to move down south and just see, who and what I could work for down there as far as companies go. And Tennessee was definitely, like, obviously first, because that's, if you move down south from Kentucky, Tennessee is right below us. And so ended up, I work for, well, the 2 companies I'll be working for this weekend, I'll go and shout them out. There's KLBK, which is a company that was started by a collective of wrestlers who are kind of like a clique, I guess you could call them, KLBK, and they started
That's
this.
dope. Super dope.
And it's a really fun place. And then on night 2, I'm working at a place called NGW, which in NGW has probably been the place that I've worked with more people from like WWE than any place. I got to meet Eric Bischoff on one of their shows. Like, it's NGW is a really, really cool place.
Was he a nice guy? What was your thoughts on Eric?
We got a brief 30-second, quick, hey, how you doing, sir? Nice to meet you. He's super influential, whatever. He said, thank you so much. And then he had to go do a run-in, cut a promo or whatever he was doing. But I had the match after his promo deal or whatever. And I was standing in Gorilla at the same time. And I was like, yo, I have to say hi to him at least,
Oh, of course. You can't miss those opportunities. You and I are very similar. We like to, we're big on like taking our shot and not afraid to go approach people. And like, dude, Eric Bischoff's one of the best heels of all time.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. And not like that, but he revolutionized wrestling, a lot of, what wrestling is today wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Eric Bischoff. So he's definitely an influential figure just in the business, but through this company, I've also worked with like Fandango a handful of times.
Love it.
Been working a lot with Matt Cross, who was Son of Havoc on Lucha Underground. Been working a lot with like Rich Swann at this company. Who else? One of the funnest matches I've ever had in my career happened at this place. It was Sugar Dunkerton, who some people might know as Pineapple Pete from AEW.
Yes. Shout out to Pineapple Pete.
Right. He took on a guy, crap, I can't think of his indie name, but in WWE, it was No Way Jose. And and we did probably at least 2 or 3 referee spots. I got rolled up in the middle of it. I
love when you get in the action, dude. That's fucking
awesome. Yeah. And especially, if we could do it effectively, and so and what was really cool about that was once we got to the back, No Way Jose was like Man, I used to try and do referee spots all the time, and every single time we would get to the back, and we would always get our asses ripped. He was like, I would try and do them on TV, and they would never let us do spots with the referees. He's like, so I'm really glad that I'm back on the Indies and we can do stuff like that. And so that felt good. That was pretty cool. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at this weekend. I work for KLBK and then NGW. I also have a show here locally here in Louisville, actually, too. If anybody hears this,
What company is that with?
That'll be on this Friday.
Okay.
It's a company called Paradigm Pro Wrestling. And guys like Myron Reed from MLW and stuff like that is going to be there. So it's going to be a pretty good show, man. It's at the arena in Jeffersonville, 1416 Spring Street, if anybody that lives in the Louisville area is listening. So
hell yeah, man. Definitely plug your shit, dude. And I think it's awesome. Like you've mentioned a lot of companies like MLW, Game Changer Wrestling. All these companies are so relevant and big now, not only pay-per-view wise and having current wrestlers go up to these bigger shows, but also just checking them out on YouTube in general. And I don't know, man. I've been really digging deep into the archives and watching a lot of older wrestling, and then I've been watching the newer, and I'm a huge YouTube fan. That's never going to change, and I love watching all the different YouTube and listening to wrestlers. And I had my buddy Frankie on, who is a huge wrestling fan, a few episodes ago, and we were just talking about all the, with Vince stepping down, all the stories you hear about, not only about Vince, but just about wrestling in general. And it's just, it's always interesting to hear. Like, that's why I was wanting to ask about Eric Bischoff, to find out, how these people are. But it's like, who are some of the guys that you really are a big fan of that you've worked with here recently that some of the listeners might actually know?
Sure. Well, let's see. Still a huge Eddie Kingston fan. So glad that Eddie is on a platform that he is able to, express his talents. And also, too, Eddie comes from the Indies, and so, and he was actually at, let's see, the Fed that I worked for in St. Louis not too terribly long ago. I'd say probably about 3 or 4 months ago, but but yeah, Eddie is one that that most people will recognize their names. Let's see, I'm trying to think who else I worked with. Like I was saying, that Jonah match with ACH is definitely one that was incredible. ACH is another one, and while I'm talking about him, too many people might not be too familiar with him, or maybe just familiar with what he did in NXT for that very short time he was there. But regardless, man, like ACH is one of the best dudes in pro wrestling, and not only that, but just like one of the most incredible guys to work with. And he's really been going through a lot recently and kind of been up and down with his mental health and stuff. And it's really sad to see because, I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but I just know that he is a person who is very, very passionate about, what he does and does it at a very, very extremely high level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of saddening a little bit to see him go through the troubles he's going through. But yeah, ACH is one that I love working with all the time. Oh, shoot. I don't even know how I forgot. I worked with Suzuki, Manoa Suzuki, not long ago.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
And yeah, that was such an experience. We actually had a really cool moment during the match where he had we were on the outside and he was acting like he was gonna, it was Manoa Suzuki and Jake something, which if anybody's listening that watches Impact might be familiar with Jake something. But and he's also been doing a little bit of AEW recently. So, but anyway, Jake or Suzuki was acting like he was stabbing Jake something with a pen. And I was kind of yelling at him and I was like, stop that, quit. And he comes over and turns his attention to me. And I'm like, wagging my finger in his face. And he grabs my finger and goes to bend it back. Luckily, I'm double jointed.
Yeah.
So as he's bending my finger back, and it looks like he's actually bending it pretty hard, and I'm selling it while also being like, "Hey, I'm the referee. You can't do that. Stop it." And
Yeah.
he lets go of my finger, kind of straightens my shirt out for me, like, "I'm sorry, referee," and then goes back to what he was doing. But and then we got to the back, and he doesn't speak very well English. It's very broken, but that was one of the things he had pointed out as far as when they were just kind of going over bits and pieces of the match. And he said, "Yeah, that a lot of fun. I like referees, a lot of fun." So
Yeah, that's awesome,
that,
dude. And like, so do
yeah.
you find that challenging working with someone of a different language barrier, or do you're just like, I'm going to do the same thing I do for every wrestler and just treat it the same way, or do you have to take that language barrier into effect?
Uh, so with Suzuki, I like so I don't know. It's just kind of hard to explain, just because like, so and I can say this just because recently I worked with two wrestlers that neither of them spoke any English whatsoever. But what I will say, well, especially since this is kind of a non-wrestling podcast, even though you do talk about wrestling, but wrestling is a very universal language, and so especially a lot of the move sets and stuff. Like, for instance, um, so with Suzuki, I was able to stand there, and they really didn't call a lot anyway. You know what I mean? They did a lot of stuff out in the ring, but just some of the stuff that I was able to stand there and I was able to listen to them call it, kind of know what was going to happen, where everybody was going to be, and Suzuki has the same finish every single match, pretty much for the most part. He always finishes with the Gosh Pile Driver. So, that's going to be the finish. However, going back to what I was talking about with the two guys who don't speak English whatsoever, that was with the company I talked about earlier, Expect the Unexpected, ETU. And they actually had, on their most recent show, they had a Dragon Gate showcase match, which was two wrestlers who were regulars at the Dragon Gate promotion over in Japan. They had got flown over to America to put on basically the showcase match for ETU. ETU was inspired a lot, like especially the belt. If you see the championship belt, which anybody tuned in listening, if you go check out my Instagram and scroll a couple scrolls, there's a picture of me with the belt over my shoulder. It's a really cool, beautiful belt.
Shout out your Instagram real quick. Tell them your name.
Sure, yeah, it's official SPO 502, which I'll shout it out again at the end. But
oh yeah,
official SPO 502 is my Instagram. But yeah, there a lot of the things that they do is kind of inspired by Dragon Gate, and so for them to have these two on the show and to have just a working relationship with Dragon Gate was really cool. But what I was going to say, so I knew both these guys didn't speak any English, and when I went over to go check on, hey, anything I need to know, he really didn't understand what I was asking him. So I just said, finish. What's finish? And he go, oh, sharpshooter. Cool. Say less. That was all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Also, and then I think that they understood what I was asking at that point, because then they also filled me in. Hey, we're going to do a really big dive off the balcony. Of course, they didn't like say all that, but they just kind of through broken, not even broken English. It was just like, hey, also, big dive, and I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, that was literally all I really knew as far as that match went, and then we went out there and did it. But
that's incredible, dude. That's awesome.
Well, I had learned early that by working at a place, my former home fed, IWA Mid-South, just because we used to bring in foreign guys all the time. And IWA actually had a working relationship with like the DDT company over Japan. So we would send young boys over here a lot. And some of their only places they've ever worked in America was at IWA Mid-South. And those guys were kind of the same way. So I had to learn somewhat early in my career that, wrestling is very universal. we call a lot of the same moves here what they do over there, like a sharpshooter, so and that helps a lot.
And I think they're also, there's so much training going on in different countries, and like it's such an international sport now that
Yeah.
they get to learn these moves from different people. And shit, Canada's huge pro wrestling, Mexico, South America, Japan, I mean United States. I mean it doesn't get much better than, I mean shit, Texas is almost like its own fucking country with pro wrestling. So it's really cool to see how international it is. And like what got me really hyped is like I love the evolution of pro wrestling and just how big it just has fucking become. I love it because I've been so passionate about it over the years, and I just love to see it grow, and I love to see every company do well. But what was really fucking cool and a really big highlight, I think, for pro wrestling that a lot of people maybe didn't really, I don't know, process or reflect on, was that pay-per-view where AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling had the combination pay-per-view, and they were able to put it in movie theaters. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really fucking cool because not only it's like pro wrestling is hitting global or like movie theaters in a way where everyone can watch it and it's promoted, you also have New Japan Pro Wrestling in the theaters, like an international company like from Japan. So it's really fucking cool to see that happen. And I love to see the growth and how, and I think events like that and like like just shit promotions and marketing and things of those nature is just helping pro wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you have, and then also too, what helps is the fact that, you got a company like AIW out here or AEW out here who gives chances to, the wrestlers that may not have gotten looked at like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, WWE, I guess in the last 10 years, you could say that they had uh, started looking more on the independent scene. But if you remember, when we were kids, they didn't book indie wrestlers like that, like, uh,
Oh
so,
no.
uh, but now, fast forward, Seth Rollins at one point, as Tyler Black, was one of the biggest indie wrestlers in the world, so, and I'd say he's probably on top, if not, who your champion is, Roman or something like that. But, Seth is usually the spoil. So, but I mean, even if you look at guys like at Mox, you know what I mean, over on the other side, he's their champion, and same situation. You know what I mean? He was killing it, CZW and all kind of companies like that, and that's part of the reason why, which was really cool, that he was able to go to GCW and do the things that he was doing at GCW too, just because he had that past there. You know what I mean? It's crazy, like when I first, which we might have talked about this on on the first episode on season 1, but you were talking about going back and watching, like, older wrestling and just watching some old stuff from back in the day. When I first had kind of gotten really even into independent wrestling just in general, it was crazy because I started working at IWA Mid-South, and we did death matches and stuff, and I didn't really know who was anybody that was there at that time period. However, I had heard of the history and prestige of IWA Mid-South. And
Yeah.
so, especially that first year that I was really there, I had fell down a lot of different rabbit holes. And there's actually a lot on YouTube that if you go and look at IWA Mid-South, you could find, matches with Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles back in like 2001 or 2003 or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, Roderick Strong and different stuff like that back in their indie days and stuff, because they got their start at IWA Mid-South at one point. CM Punk, same way,
And people have no idea what gold they were seeing back then for such a cheap ticket and ended up so close.
No clue, bro. And it's still the same way. Just because companies like I mentioned earlier, Paradigm, that's here in this area, they've been booking Myron Reed since before Myron Reed was really anybody, and now he's a 2 or 3-time MLW champion. So yeah, it's still the same way. And I mean, you can still, or Sugar Dunkerton actually was Paradigm champion until recently, but Pineapple Pete, he's been coming to this area forever, and that's one of my favorite people to work with. But
and you've been a huge supporter of Pineapple Pete because me and you were so excited and so pumped for that push of Pineapple Pete versus Chris Jericho on AEW. That was humongous, especially for the local scene here in Southern Indiana and Louisville. So shout out to Pineapple Pete. I think he's huge for wrestling because, him, you mentioned it, I think you mentioned earlier, it's just like these guys making it from these local scenes, and even if it is a short run, it's just huge. It's huge for other wrestlers because it's not only like, oh shit, like this guy can do it, but it's just a confidence builder. I mean, if you see somebody do it, you can do it.
Exactly. It gives people more hope, very similar to kind of, somewhat, I guess, change gears a little bit. It's very similar to like how on the music scene, if you remember here in Louisville, when Bryson Tiller made it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every single artist in Louisville, wait, I hate the term local artist, and I almost said it, but every artist in Louisville, whether they were a rapper, R&B singer, whatever, was like, oh shoot, people about to be looking at us. You know what I'm saying? And it did happen to some certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Because you had other guys like ESTG and Jack Harlow that popped out of Louisville and have been able to do some things.
And I want to give them credit. I want to give those two credit because they have that new song with that new video by Cole Bennett at Lyrical Lemonade. It's like the backstage passes. Or is that what it's called? Backstage passes?
Or backstage passes. Yep.
Yeah. And what I love about that song the most is it's the ad lib of Bryson Tiller's "Don't," like where he breaks it down. There, like Jack always finds a way to show that respect. So it's cool for both of them to show the respect to Bryson because Bryson still is relevant. I mean, dude, I remember with Bryson Tiller here recently. I saw it was like all over Instagram and Facebook. He was advertising like this Blue Roses album release thing, like where it's like the anniversary of his first album. And if you bought it, you got like a dozen Royal Blue Roses. Like it was wild. And I was like, that's such a dope packaging. And it's so dope from a local fucking artist. That's sick as fuck.
Right. But at the same time, Bryson's still a superstar, man. That first album did a lot for him,
Oh, it was huge, dude. That's a great album, man.
It's amazing. Yeah, that Trap Soul album was so beautiful, man. But now it's also crazy to see more superstars from Louisville, be global superstars like your Harlows. You know what I mean? It's wild to see, man, for real. Especially because like they were, on the scene doing stuff whenever I was doing music. You know what I mean? Like I remember whenever Harlow used to get snuck in the back door at Highland Tap Room, because we had, he had to do his, 2 or 3 song set and then get snuck right back out the door. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't hang around just because he couldn't. He wasn't allowed to. It was a bar, Mm-hmm. And so, it's crazy to see now, like where he's at. Even so,
well, I mean, his career is just taken off in such short span. I mean, I just remember what's my like Jack Harlow experience was like. I didn't know much about him. My friend Brian Chappell would play him all the fucking time, and I'd like give him a listen. And then when I worked at Leo Weekly, we cover him a little bit in the music scene. But I just remember going to a Forecastle, and he wasn't really that big then. It's just still before What's Poppin', and I met him backstage at Playboy Cardi. He was super cool. And then it's like What's Poppin' comes out. And then I just kept seeing it happen. And then he was at my barbershop and, very humble guy, very down to earth. And it's just, then I just kept seeing his career take off. And it's so impressive. And then when I got to see him I went to his show when he did the, Nothing Like, nothing like home tour thing. I went to the one at Zanzibar, and it was, a very intimate thing. A lot of just music execs and people. It was about 50 people there, and it was just incredible. And you just seen his grind and just his demeanor and just the way he is on stage. I mean, you can't deny it. He's a fucking superstar, and he's really great for the city. And then ESTG, I mean, he's definitely done huge things. I'm in Newburgh a lot. I spend a lot of time in Newburgh because I'm in the housing situation of like property management. I talk to the tenants, and you talk to kids and different people out while you're at the homes, like doing work or checking on them. And people bring him up and bring up his music, and he's played a lot, and it's cool to see that these guys are blooming from Louisville, because this was a lot of people's dream, man, when we were kids. I mean, shit, me and you we did music, we still like music, and it's just like, it's cool to see people making it. I mean, I'm just a fan of that shit.
Same, exactly, man. Whether I'm doing music or whether I'm doing the wrestling, like I love seeing people making it. You know what I mean? And on the tip that you were talking about with Harlow, I was around him quite a bit, just because. So back when I did music, I don't know how much we got into like my music stuff whenever we had talked before, but back when I did music, I felt like I was one of those kind of guys that moved all across the city, because so this was back 2014, 15-ish, somewhere around there. If you remember, there was really like 3 different scenes in Louisville. You know what I mean? Maybe 4 different scenes in Louisville. There was the West. There was like the Union Station, like Blue Lick, like way the fuck out there. And then there was the Highland scene, like as far as hip hop goes. And then the Newburgh scene, but then the Newburgh and the West, they kind of intercrossed a lot, because a lot of people from Newburgh would perform at places in the West, or vice versa. But I felt like I like consciously really tried to move across. Plus, I had peoples in all areas of the different scenes and shit, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I really dabbled a lot. I would say my favorite place to perform back then was like the Highland area, whether it be like, I performed a lot at Tap Room. Shout out to Jared. I performed at Time and Space a lot. I performed at Mag Bar quite a bit, which I know that's not the Highlands, but so their scenes kind of intercross, I guess. But Harlow, I was always around him, but really more so I was fans of the people that he called like big bro and stuff, you know what I mean? And like the people that he like really kind of moved with. Like, for instance, there was T Razor that he used to move with a lot. I'm a huge
I love T Razor, dude. He used to cut hair at my barbershop, Frankie's barbershop.
Yeah, T-Rex, he's a man. And then guys like Bones, they used to be a group together called Big and Tall. And just different guys like that. Dom B, he used to roll around with a lot. A few different guys that like Jordan Jetson is another one. 1200. Like I could, man, there was some talent in Louisville back in that day. So he had some really good influences back whenever I was first kind of exposed to him. But his music really wasn't, although he was a great rapper, I would say, his music really wasn't my flavor, and he wasn't really talking about things I could relate to. So I wasn't like a huge fan of him. But I could see his grind. I could see him being everywhere. And just as he was moving all over the place, and so.
And he didn't care to be anywhere. That's the one thing. He didn't give a shit where he was at.
Nah, he just showed up and did his thing, man. And then I saw the grind in Louisville before he even like really got out of Louisville, because he was opening for a certain artist. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe like a Big Crit. I think there was one time I saw he opened for, and there was a couple others that I remember seeing shows at the Mercury Ballroom, and he had opened for a few of these guys, and like he had his own crowd that would show up at these places, like all these screaming high school girls that they would say Jack Harlow and they would go crazy, Well,
man, because he just had they said he had the party scene just jumping, like, because of all the people he would stay relevant with. And what's crazy too is like he wanted, the thing about him is that, and maybe that's why people get, I don't know, people are salty about him, is because, you know, everyone has this dream in Louisville because everybody wants to make it out of Louisville or do something relevant. And Jack just had that drive of like, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, he was going to do it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And he didn't give a fuck, like, because I remember the craziest thing ever was like, there was a dude that was super talented named Hemi Hardaway that used to record with Jack and Bryson, and he was really big, and I was friends with him. I'm still friends with him. He's a good guy, but he you know, he had all the talent in the world, and he could have really got signed, and he was really doing big things and was working with the really big local artists. And he also had connections in the West. He had connections in the Highlands, connections in Blue. So that's how the local hip hop scene, you know, because shit, dude, just like pro wrestling, everything's networking. And it's crazy, you know, he's nowhere now. And then you see Jack and Bryce, all these people becoming fucking legends and never gonna be forgotten. And it's just, it's all about, it's a life lesson. It's all about what you put into it to really get back what the fuck you really want. And
right.
And that's the main thing that people have to learn. But hey, everybody, this is part 1 of the episode with Sean P. We will be recording part 2, which will be coming out a few days after this. So I'm going to, right now, we are going to give our shout out, the info. You know, you can reach out to vibingwithsleazy@gmail.com, Vibing with Sleazy the podcast on Instagram, Facebook. Sean, tell them how they can connect with you.
For sure. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram both. It's official SPO 502. And then I'm on Facebook also, Sean Patrick O'Brien. You can follow me there. Yeah, get with me.
Yep. So check out Sean P. You'll see him on different pro wrestling. He'll be at the big show one day, AEW, WWE, but right now he's dominating the independent scene. And Sean is doing his damn thing. And, you know, support him, get the merchandise, get anything that you can, send him love. And, you know, he loves to hear it. And I want to thank everybody for listening, downloading the show. Check out season 1, episode 1 with Sean P. If you want to tune in, that was a great episode. And then we have this fire episode here. And then part 2 is fucking coming up soon. We're about to record that next. So thank you, everybody. This is Vibing with Sleazy, the podcast. We are out. Peace.